Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome to Oscar Nova. Remember to like and subscribe to support the journey. Today, we're diving into the story of what's the point of cultivating immortality if you don't have money. Just as Jiang Yu and Yeling Xiao were silently preparing for their final exam, the vast majority of the audience in the stands, however, did not continue to focus their attention on the physical fitness track. After all, for these viewers watching remotely through the Spirit Realm network, they were actually watching the finals on all four tracks of the Foundation Establishment exam on the first level of Kongshu today. Many university representatives, due to the interests they represent, have special requirements for enrollment, and did not pay much attention to the physical fitness track, with most of their attention focused on other tracks. And when Jiang Yu and Yeling Xiao were temporarily resting, even the viewers who were originally focused on the physical fitness track would naturally look at other tracks first. Daoshin and Mana aren't very interesting to watch. Laughing and crying emoji after watching the Daoshin and Mana exam venues for a while, he finally decided to check out the situation on the martial arts track. Among Daoshin, Mana, physical fitness, and martial arts in the key refining stage, the most interesting exams seem to be physical fitness and martial arts. However, more people are watching the physical fitness track. After all, this track is suitable for many majors. As for martial arts, every year it's a practical exam, mainly related to safety, weapons, war, military, etc. At most, representatives of majors such as weapon refinement, dharma skeletons, and medicine in the combat direction will pay more attention. Laughing and crying emoji just as these thoughts flashed through his mind, he glanced at the martial arts arena and was slightly stunned to find that the competition here had already ended. So fast. Looking at the woman lying on the arena, her body almost falling apart, laughing and crying emoji curiously selected the replay function. So the picture in front of him began to rewind quickly, and soon it started playing from the beginning of the match. In the same examination room presided over by Huang Ziku. First, the venue appeared, then the explanation of the exam content and rules, and the preparation of the candidates. After all of this was completed, Bai Zhenzhen and Yunjing walked up from both sides of the arena. In this final martial arts exam, a best-of-3 format will be followed, with a total of 3 arena battles. After each arena battle, both candidates will receive unlimited medical insurance treatment. And in each arena match, the gods will also save them before death. In other words, in each of these 3 rounds, both sides can fight with the strongest, most desperate, and most reckless attitude, releasing all their combat potential without any scruples. In addition, various combat spirit routes and weapons were displayed on the side, for both sides to choose freely. However, neither Yunjing nor Bai Zhenzhen borrowed combat spirit routes. Bai Zhenzhen did choose a yuan magnetic vibration sword, which, after injecting mana, could vibrate the blade at a high frequency and burst out with powerful destructive power. Feeling the coldness from the hilt, Bai Zhenzhen thought to herself, this kind of corporate level magic weapon, I would never be able to use it normally, right? And the unlimited medical insurance at the end of each round by Zhenzhen couldn't help but crack a slight smile when she thought of this. I've really never fought such a well-funded battle in my life. As the countdown above the arena gradually reached 0, Bai Zhenzhen suddenly raised her long sword and shouted, university representatives in the audience, see clearly. She pointed her sword at Yunjing and said, next, I will defeat my opponent in 1 move. Think carefully about what conditions you should offer me. Yunjing, on the other side of the arena, remained calm when he heard these words, but thought to himself, just like when I fought Daixingji last time, are you trying to anger me? This woman really likes to use the provocation trick. Yunjing didn't respond to Bai Zhenzhen's provocation, and directly responded with action the moment the countdown reached 0. The double dantian in his chest and abdomen activated simultaneously, and lava-like mana burst out continuously, turning into a sky full of firewalls that swept towards Bai Zhenzhen's location like a waterfall. In that battle 3 months ago, Bai Zhenzhen was forced off the arena by this large-scale move, losing that exam. But now, 3 months have passed, and the move that Bai Zhenzhen thought was helpless at the time is now full of flaws. In the past period of time, Bai Zhenzhen has experienced battle after battle in gang fights, witnessing how many imaginative methods the cultivators at the bottom of Xiong City can create in order to earn money, kill people, do business, and survive. It was also in this continuous fighting process that Bai Zhenzhen felt that her true spirit root was constantly adapting making her feel that the masters of the Jin Kegang were getting weaker and weaker, and the flaws in their moves were getting more and more obvious. She once thought that all the key refining peaks of the Jin Kegang had been killed. Later, she realized that it was not that the people of the Jin Kegang had become weaker, but that she was getting stronger and stronger, and could more and more distinguish the opponent's flaws based on the changes in the spiritual energy in the air. Just like at this moment, the impenetrable firewall had several weak points in her eyes. With a flick of the long sword in her hand, Bai Zhenjin had already passed through the firewall and walked towards Yanjing. "Here I come." Bai Zhenjin smiled slightly, and the next moment she shot towards Yanjing like a bolt of lightning. Yanjing thought the myriad swords without any technique. Bai Zhenjin's attack was very fast, but it still did not escape Yanjing's observation. His Dharma skeleton almost immediately judged Bai Zhenjin's attack, and even the possible follow-up moves, as well as the flaws in each move. "I really can't learn a bunch of cultivation techniques in 3 years of high school, like that freak Ling Xiong. But the cultivation techniques I bought will definitely not be less than his." The reason why Yonjing wanted to buy the copyrights of various cultivation techniques was to store the data of a large number of cultivation techniques into his Dharma skeleton, so that he could instantly judge the opponent's moves in battle and find the opponent's flaws. And to do this, the amount of money spent was obviously not something ordinary students could imagine. Even though Yanjing had spent a lot of time and energy on this. After all, even if he came from a wealthy family, the money his family gave him was not unlimited. If he wanted more money, he needed to earn it himself. And from the second grade of elementary school, Yanjing started his own business with his father's encouragement. He still remembered what his father once told him. "There are 2 truths in this world that I want to tell you. First, although you can only cultivate immortality in high school, the matter of making money can begin from the moment a person is born. Second, the upper limit that a person can reach in immortality is determined by the wealth that person possesses. From these 2 facts, we can draw a conclusion. The true cultivation of immortality actually begins from the moment you are born. Start earning money, Yunjing. The sooner you start, the more you learn. Only by earning more money can you go further on the path of immortality." Yunjing deeply agreed with his father's words. That's why he started investing in kindergarten, becoming an angel investor in several companies. In the second grade of elementary school, he founded his first company. While his classmates were doing homework, he was staying up late doing reports. While his classmates were reviewing, he was chairing midnight meetings. While his classmates were doing practice papers, he was accompanying his employees to work overtime, all night. After entering Immortal Cloud High School, Yunjing did not give up on this path. "While others are breathing in and out spiritual energy, I am making money. While others are in practical combat, I am making money. While others are refining their bodies, I am still making money. It is because of my daily and yearly persistence in making money that I have come to this point today. I have been cultivating immortality since I was 5 years old." Just like in the past 3 months, Yanjing's cultivation was to continue making money. It was precisely because he earned more money that, even with the family's limited budget, he was still able to let his id-based Dharma artifact master more copyright of cultivation methods, to disassemble and outsource his meridians and flesh to university graduates for body refinement, and to use spiritual roots to buy the magical power of college students. Yunjing extended both palms, following the guidance of his id-based Dharma artifact, attacking the flaws in Bai Zhenjin's moves. But in the next moment, he suddenly discovered Bai Zhenjin's bizarre change of moves, displaying a basic high school swordsmanship technique. Without time to think, Yunjing followed suit, changing his offensive. Seeing this, a smile appeared on the corner of Bai Zhenjin's mouth. "Our battle actually started half a year ago. Half a year ago, it was the end of the second round of foundation establishment exams. It was at that time that Bai Zhenjin learned that the strongest opponent on her path was the man in front of her. Therefore, based on her observations, she began to search for what model the other party's Dharma artifact should be, what martial arts the other party was using, what was going on with the dual dantian, and what the various anomalies in digestion and combat represented. Bai Zhenjin seized every opportunity to observe, and coupled with her diligent collection of information afterward, she gradually completed her understanding of the opponent's combat data. For example, the other party's Dharma artifact. Bai Zhenjin finally confirmed the model of this Dharma artifact through repeated searches and shape comparisons on shopping websites. The Heavenly Eye Company's enterprise-level Dharma artifact, a Dharma artifact that can be used during the key refining stage Heavenly Eye. Bai Zhenjin was already extremely familiar with the data and performance of this eye-based Dharma artifact. She scoured the internet for reviews and evaluations, constantly looking at reviews and evaluations, even sending private messages to those review bloggers and internet celebrities, asking about the details, even rewarding them for it. In this process, Bai Zhenjin had become extremely knowledgeable about this Dharma artifact. The biggest flaw of Heavenly Eye is that its spirit is too rigid. When I use basic high school swordsmanship, because this swordsmanship is too simple and common, the flaws in it have long been agreed upon, so the way Heavenly Eye solves it can be predicted. For Bai Zhenjin, when she used this basic sword move, she already knew how the other party would break it, which meant she could predict the other party's next move. Bai Zhenjin did not dodge, nor did she choose to block. She chose to take the opportunity to stab the opponent's body with her sword, at the cost of half her body being engulfed in flames, and suffering severe burns, under the circumstance of predicting the opponent's move. With a thud, Bai Zhenjin, emitting a burnt smell, was already kneeling on the ground. At the same time, accompanied by a soft sound, the sword body flashing with electric light had already pierced into Yunjing's shoulder. But Yunjing didn't care about this. With my body protecting cultivation technique, plus my combat spiritual root, her sword will definitely not break through. In the next moment, the tiny wound on Yunjing's shoulder suddenly expanded, with the stimulation of magical power, and a large amount of blood spurted out like a fountain, accelerating the collapse of his body. What? Yunjing looked at this scene in disbelief, unable to understand how his body, which had been outsourced to hundreds of university students and tempered thousands of times, could be broken so easily by such a light sword strike. After this battle, after 3 months of investigation, Yunjing learned that several university graduates had outsourced the project to a group of junior college graduates after receiving his outsourcing project. Among this group of junior college graduates, one person outsourced the work in his hands to a high school student. It was because of the negligence of that high school student that Yunjing's body had a trace of flaw. And this trace of flaw was noticed by Bai Zhenjin, which broke through his body protecting cultivation technique. At this moment, on the arena, accompanied by a soft sound, the long sword followed this burst of flaws, almost cutting through most of Yunjing's body. It was at this moment that the gods rescued Yunjing and Bai Zhenjin, respectively. Although Bai Zhenjin was seriously injured, Yunjing suffered a fatal injury that almost killed him. First round, Bai Zhenjin wins. After the treatment was completed, Bai Zhenjin, who was on stage for the second round, looked at Yunjing with an arrogant expression, and said lightly, "I said I would defeat you with one move." Looking at Bai Zhenjin's high and mighty appearance, Yunjing had to admit that he was indeed a little irritated by the other party. And this kind of anger was also accompanied by a kind of tension because he didn't know how the other party broke through his body protecting cultivation technique. So after the start of the second round, Yunjing went all out, no longer giving the other party any chance to get close. Relying on the crazy output brought by the dual dantian, Yunjing almost turned the entire arena into a sea of fire, completely not giving Bai Zhenjin the slightest chance to get close. Under his continuous bombardment, Bai Zhenjin struggled for more than 10 minutes before, finally, being forced off the arena. After this battle in the second round, Yunjing regained his confidence, knowing that his hard power was after all above the other party's. As long as he performed stably and didn't fall for the other party's tricks, it was impossible to lose. Now it's one win and one loss. Yunjing thought to himself, as long as I win this last round, I will get the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate. But at the start of the third round, Bai Zhenjin once again pointed her sword to the sky, and said to the audience, "Everyone, watch carefully. This round is already over. I will still defeat him with one sword later. My university goal is only the top 10. You guys get ready to come and recruit me with competitive conditions." Ever since witnessing Yunjing's power in the previous tough Foundation Establishment examination rounds and understanding the gap between herself and him in terms of strength and financial resources, Bai Zhenjin quickly realized something. If I simply improve my strength step by step, even if I try my best and eventually reach a level similar to my opponent, the win rate in a fight would only be 50-50. So, if I want to obtain the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate, it's not enough to just focus on improving my strength. And it's not like I don't have any advantages. My advantage is that in the first 2 rounds, I was weak enough, so weak that the opponent didn't even take me seriously. From the moment the groups were formed, she had regarded Yanjing as her biggest opponent, constantly paying attention to him, understanding him, and collecting information. I understand his Dharma body, his cultivation techniques, his dual Dantian technique, but he doesn't know much about me. This information gap formed due to her weakness was Bai Zhenjin's advantage. To make good use of this information advantage, I must become stronger in a targeted manner. My goal is not to surpass my opponent, but to defeat him in the arena. These are actually two different directions. It's like, to surpass a high school student from Songyang High School in strength, one needs to cultivate diligently, day and night. But to defeat a high school student from Songyang High School, one might only need a dump truck, or put a pirated secret manual in the opponent's desk. It was when she realized this that Bai Zhenjin began to gradually adjust her cultivation direction. For example, the choice of new cultivation techniques, the direction of true spirit routes, deduction of techniques, and the change in combat style all began to focus on the arena, battle, and Yonjing as the ultimate goal. Bai Zhenjin wanted to specialize herself into the state most suitable for defeating Yonjing in the arena. Even if it meant sacrificing the improvement of her strength and other aspects during this process, she would still do it, just to get the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate. And at this moment, as soon as the 3rd round of the arena began, after hearing Bai Zhenjin's words, Yunjing once again activated the dual dantians in his body, and streams of mana turned into a sea of fire, bombarding Bai Zhenjin wildly. Looking at Bai Zhenjin's appearance of rushing left and right and running around to escape under his bombardment, Yunjing sneered in his heart, saying, "You'll defeat me with one sword, try getting close to me first." But Yunjing quickly realized that something was wrong, because the Bai Zhenjin in front of him was not trying to get close to him at all, but was instead splitting open the sea of fire with one sword after another, as if she and those seas of fire were the real enemies. What exactly does this woman want to do? No matter what she wants to do, I must stop her. I must not fall here. The Yin family is still waiting for me to revitalize it. If the family company collapses, the only things I can rely on are myself, and this Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate. A bad premonition rose in his heart. Yunjing let out a low roar. The mana in his body was raised to the limit, and the dual dantians were like roaring giant dragons, spitting out mouthfuls of lava like mana, turning into fire dragons, and bombarding towards Bai Zhenjin's direction. These fire dragons would explode with a bang upon slight contact, and besides dodging, a frontal block would inevitably result in injury. But Bai Zhenjin's face was calm, and facing the roaring fire dragons, she neither dodged nor avoided, and used the myriad swords without end technique, with the long sword in her hand, to meet them. In a loud bang, Bai Zhenjin, who split open a fire dragon with one sword, was covered in burn marks, but she still didn't stop, and faced the next fire dragon. One sword, another sword. The electric light on the long sword in Bai Zhenjin's hand became more and more dazzling, and the speed of her moves became faster and faster. It was the effect of the level 10 myriad swords without end technique, after being deduced by the true spirit root, which allowed the sword moves to accelerate continuously under the infusion of thunder mana, becoming faster with each move, until the 15th move could reach the limit and break the sound barrier. In the blink of an eye, she had also performed the 14th move of the myriad swords without end. At this moment, Bai Zhenjin's aura suddenly changed, and a pair of eyes emitted a sharp light, already staring at Yonjing, at the other end of the sea of fire. Then Bai Zhenjin launched the martial arts she had newly practiced in the past 3 months, Thunderbolt, 9 heavens, steps. In addition to accelerating the movement technique with thunder mana, the biggest feature of this technique is that it can leave thunder mana on the ground, forming an electric field within a certain area, and continuously accelerating the cultivator's movement technique. It can be said that the longer this technique is used in continuous combat within a fixed range, the stronger the electric field created, and the stronger the acceleration effect on the cultivator. After Bai Zhenjin performed deduction with the true spirit root, she greatly increased the time this technique could leave thunder mana to form an electric field. This was the technique she had specially selected, practiced, and deduced for the arena battle, which could further enhance her speed advantage in the arena. And today's best of 3 rule was even more suitable for her than she had expected. In the 2nd round of the arena just now, she wholeheartedly delayed the time, without seeking victory at all, in order to leave enough thunder mana on the arena so that the effect of the Thunderbolt 9 Heaven Steps could reach its limit in the third round. At this moment, one could see streaks of electric light suddenly bursting out on the ground of the arena, turning into an invisible electric field covering the arena. Bai Zhenjin felt that this electric field and the thunder mana all over her body were attracting each other, as if circles of springs were tightening behind her, waiting for her to give an order to launch her like an electromagnetic cannon. Not enough. Bai Zhenjin knew that she only had one chance with this sword, so she had to make this sword the best it could be. So she launched another martial art that she had never displayed in front of Yongjing Thunder, God's Thunderbolt Annihilation. The thunderous celestial ki, condensed from magical power, was applied to her body, increasing her speed while resisting the physical stress of high-speed movement. The evolved effect of this technique allowed Bai Zhenjin to unleash all the thunderous magical power within her body in one burst, delivering a swift sword strike that surpassed her own limits. Whether it was the endless sword art, the thunderous skywalking steps, or the thunder god's lightning strike, Bai Zhenjin, in her selection of techniques and subsequent evolutions, was pursuing a single goal to gain an advantage and increase her chances of victory in her battle against Yan Jing on the arena. As the thunder god's lightning strike was unleashed with full force, Bai Zhenjin felt the thunderous magical power surging out of her body, without holding back even a trace. Under the operation of the cold soul ice heart technique, in this perilous situation where she held nothing back, Bai Zhenjin could feel her flesh, power, and celestial ki becoming increasingly vibrant, under the blessing of the technique. Boom. In the next moment, accelerated by layers of electric fields, Bai Zhenjin took a step and crashed head-on into the sea of fire, slashing her sword towards Yanjing. The 15th strike of the endless sword art was like a rocket taking off, emitting a burst of thunder, and the sound of air colliding. Following the activation of the thunder god's lightning strike, Bai Zhenjin poured all the magical power within her into this sword strike. Go. Take all my magical power and celestial ki. She roared inwardly, even injecting the protective thunderous celestial ki into this strike, all to make the sword faster, even faster. Bai Zhenjin's body, lacking the protection of celestial ki, was rapidly torn apart under the high pressure of this swift movement, with cracks appearing all over her flesh. Amidst the booming sounds, Bai Zhenjin had already surpassed the sound itself, passing through the sea of fire that was being squeezed and shattered by the waves of energy, and arrived before Yanjing. Her longsword had been accelerating little by little since the first match of the day, and at this moment in the third match, the speed of this strike finally reached its limit, surpassing the speed of sound. With the full operation of the technique and extreme concentration of her mind, even though it was a strike that had already surpassed the speed of sound, Bai Zhenjin felt as if the entire world was slowing down in her eyes. She watched as the longsword in her hand pierced towards Yanjing's shoulder inch by inch, while the other's eyes were blank, without making any reaction. As expected, according to my previous calculations, after accelerating to this extent, I should be able to surpass the observational limit of Yanjing's ocular Dharma artifact. Having a thorough understanding of the various parameters of Yanjing's ocular Dharma artifact, Bai Zhenjin knew that the most reliable way to break through this Dharma artifact was to accelerate to the point where the opponent could not recognize it in time. All three battles today were to accelerate this strike to this point. No, Bai Zhenjin's mind suddenly flashed back to the arduous cultivation of the past year, the repeated life and death battles, and the time she had braced herself against the overwhelming pressure. She even remembered more, recalling the distress of hiding her spiritual roots since she was young, and the diligent studies she had undertaken to climb the path of immortality. For this strike, I have accumulated for more than 10 years, and accelerated for more than 10 years, chasing after you for more than 10 years. Now this strike has finally caught up with you. Bang. As the longsword collided with Yanjing's skin, muscles, and bones shattered layer by layer, a large hole was opened in the upper half of his body, and then he flew out with a boom. After this all-out strike, Bai Zhenjin's body had also become a bloody mess, along with this strike that surpassed the limit and crossed the speed of sound, her muscles feeling as if they were about to tear apart and disintegrate. Feeling the envelopment of divine power, Bai Zhenjin suddenly opened her eyes and said, Did I win? Huang Ziku looked at Bai Zhenjin in front of him and nodded, saying, You won. One of today's for Foundation Establishment qualification certificates belongs to you. Bai Zhenjin smiled slightly upon hearing this, thinking, Yuzi, Mom has taken care of things here, the rest is up to you. In the next moment, Bai Zhenjin completely fainted. In the audience, smiling crying emoji watched the replay of the 3 arena matches, in their entirety, and said, a bit interesting. This Bai Zhenjun's raw strength is not as strong as Yanjing's, but her combat talent and combat potential are clearly superior. Now she also has a foundation establishment qualification certificate. Smiling crying emoji immediately felt that this Bai Zhenjun was worth investing in, and could also imagine that many universities were probably already in talks to offer Bai Zhenjun admission conditions. Oh, also from Songyang City. Smiling crying emoji glanced at the candidate information and smiled slightly, saying, also from the same school as Zhang Yu. Then I might as well hire her as well. Just in time, by the time they go to college, I'll be almost done and able to go back, right? This time, even the smiling emoji next to him did not deny the proposal, but said, although this Bai Zhenjun is also super poor, the fact that she was able to obtain a foundation establishment qualification certificate on her first time participating in the foundation establishment examination does, indeed, make her a talent. She will be able to help you when she goes to college in the future. But don't forget to provide her with new employee training and establish rules for her, so that she doesn't bring the habits of a poor person from the lower classes in the future. Just then, Zhang Yu and Yueling Shao on the other side had already begun their final match, and the attention of the many spectators immediately focused on them. Zhang Yu and Yueling Shao were each standing on a high platform at this moment. The two platforms were about 5 or 6 meters high, separated by a distance of several tens of meters. Below the platforms, on the ground and in the surrounding air, strands of divine power permeated, transforming into various runes and forming a large array. As this array operated, various high-risk environments would form on the platforms, threatening Zhang Yu and Yeling Xiao. A dragon binding cord was currently stretched between the two platforms, with Zhang Yu and Yeling Xiao, each holding one end. Yeling Xiao took a deep breath, every inch of his flesh and blood adjusting to its optimal state, like a rocket fully fueled and ready to launch, prepared to strike with all his might at any moment. At the same time, he licked the divine mind pill he held in his mouth. Once the test began, he planned to directly crush the outer shell of the sealed medicine and swallow the divine mind pill in one gulp. Yeling Xiao looked at Zhang Yu on the other platform, his eyes radiating intense fighting spirit, already determined to go all out from the start. Yeling Xiao thought to himself, judging from the results of the previous 2 rounds, his physical body is now at about the same level as mine, but perhaps due to his Tao heart, or insufficient accumulation time. In short, his control over his physical body is lacking. Especially recalling Zhang Yu's clumsy performance in the Xuanming heavy water during the previous foundation establishment test, Yeling Xiao became even more convinced of this point. This guy's physical strength must have only recently caught up to my level, so his control is insufficient. Then the best way is to explode with all my strength from the beginning, relying on my advantage in controlling my physical body to unleash even stronger physical power and defeat him in one go. Otherwise, once the high-risk environments take turns changing, and our physical bodies are constantly worn down and weakened, my advantage in controlling my physical body will become less and less. Feeling the divine mind pill in his mouth, Yeling Xiao thought to himself, fortunately, I haven't made little progress in these 3 months. My initial burst will definitely defeat him. Just as Yeling Xiao made up his mind, the countdown in mid-air suddenly appeared. 3. Seeing the countdown appear, Zhang Yu on the other platform also suddenly tensed all his muscles, his hands gripping the dragon binding cord tightly. At the same time, Zhang Yu thought to himself, this match must be dragged out. My control is not as good as his. If we compete directly head-on, the outcome is uncertain. I must rely on the massive toxin eruption of the spring-autumn endless Zen to defeat my opponent, with brute force, in one go. Even if Yeling Xiao also has this move, he doesn't have the high school sacred body, so the toxins he can unleash will definitely be far less than mine. Feeling the Zen character that was still constantly absorbing toxins, Zhang Yu thought to himself, the longer I drag it out, the more medicinal power I digest, and the more toxins I accumulate. I can also unleash stronger power in a short period of time, and then I can directly defeat my opponent with brute force beyond his capabilities. So, drag it out as long as possible, until I really can't hold on anymore, then erupt the toxins and stimulate my potential. Thinking of this, Zhang Yu looked at the high school sacred body on the chain method diagram, but ultimately did not switch it to the martial Dao sacred embryo. He decided to let the high school sacred body continue to absorb more medicinal power and gather more toxins with the digestion and metabolism capabilities of a key refining pea cultivator. Xiong Yu could feel that every second he greedily held on, the next eruption would have one more point of strength, and this test would have one more chance of winning. Just as Xiong Yu's mind was flashing through these thoughts, the countdown number in mid-air had already changed again. 2. Ye Ling Xiao fiercely bit open the shell of the divine mind pill and swallowed it in one gulp. In the blink of an eye, the medicinal power had dissolved in his body, and streams of cool air rushed straight to the top of his head. Xiong Yu took a deep breath, his muscles exploding, and his whole body had swelled into a 2.8-meter tall giant. 1. Roar. In a furious roar, Xiong Yu's muscles twisted into a rope, like a series of explosives detonating, violently yanking the dragon binding cord in his hand. On the other platform, after the effects of the divine mind pill took hold, Ye Ling Xiao was in a dazed state. He was as if he hadn't reacted, and in that instant, he was dragged out by Xiong Yu, leaving only 3 meters between him and the edge of the platform. In that instant, it was as if there were two voices in his mind, one saying to first circulate the Rai exquisite bone, and the other saying to first activate the great heavenly dragon divine power. His body also expanded and contracted for a while, as if there was a conflict between the cultivation methods. Ye Ling Xiao secretly thought, something was wrong. Did something go wrong with the divine mind pill? Was the interval between consecutive doses too short? The great sense of threat from the edge of the platform 3 meters away, the word failure was like a collapsing sky, pressing down hard on Ye Ling Xiao. I can't lose. In that short moment, Ye Ling Xiao seemed to recall various past events. He remembered those dead brothers and sisters, and the clan rules that the Yue clan had adhered to generation after generation. People are born with different talents. Rather than wasting resources on mediocre talents, it is better to directly abandon them, and only cultivate the most outstanding one in each generation. These were the words the clan leader had said to him before he entered high school. Talent determines the upper limit of every clansman. And the easiest way to obtain clansmen with powerful talents is to have more children. Ling Xiao, do you still remember the card drawing games operated by the company? Just like drawing character cards, as long as you draw enough, you will always draw powerful characters. The same is true for descendants. As long as you have enough children, you will always get descendants with talent. The Tao of Heaven is so wonderful. The clan leader stroked his head and said with a smile, therefore, our Night clan creates more than 10,000 descendants in each generation, but only a few of them can become true bloodline inheritors. Generation after generation, coupled with the latest immortal techniques, can we condense the perfect bloodline of our clan. But I have made new changes based on this. After all, although some descendants do not have strong overall talent, certain parts of their bodies have unique advantages. Just like some people are born with long arms, some people's hearts are naturally stronger, and some people's meridians are naturally tougher. This kind of difference is also very common among your brothers and sisters, and you are still a clan with the same bloodline. The clan leader said with a face full of pride, Ling Xiao, your own talent is already excellent enough to be considered the best among your 10,000 brothers and sisters. That's why you are worthy of the Knight surname. But after grafting in those excellent older brothers, older sisters, and younger sisters, after gathering the excellent talents from them, you will be the strongest generation of the Knight family. You must cooperate sincerely and unite as one, understand? On the high platform of the examination hall. In the instant he was dragged out by Xiong Yu, seemingly stimulated by the crisis, seemingly pressured by the memories in his mind, the two conflicting thoughts in Ye Ling Xiao's mind suddenly cooperated, sincerely. On the other side, Xiong Yu was invigorated when he saw Ye Ling Xiao being pulled by him. What's wrong with him? Could it be that I'm going to win directly? The latest novels are first published on 6/9 Shubiye. Xiong Yu wanted to explode the power of the boundless zen of spring and autumn, to defeat the opponent in one go. However, Ye Ling Xiao, who was only in a daze for a moment, did not give Xiong Yu this opportunity. Boom. Ye Ling Xiao suddenly stomped on the ground, and at the same time his muscles swelled, even dragon scale-like muscles appeared, and he launched the wishful exquisite bone and the great heavenly dragon divine power at the same time. Immediately afterwards, the two thoughts in Ye Ling Xiao's mind cooperated seamlessly and launched one martial art after another. The poison of the boundless zen of spring and autumn erupted, and the fustra continued to expand, brought about by the elephant demon entangling tendons, transformation. Ye Ling Shao instantly stabilized his figure at the edge of the high platform. Bang! As Ye Ling Shao stopped, the dragon binding rope suddenly stretched straight in midair, making a burst of explosions. In Ye Ling Shao's mind, the two thoughts roared in turn, all making their own voices. We are the most outstanding. How can we lose? If we lose to the other party, wouldn't it tarnish the name of the perfect bloodline? How else can we promote the new technology? The huge amount of funds invested in the stock, do you know how much less we will earn? Without this money, how can we go to college? How can we compete with those rich people above? Whoever makes us earn less. We want him to die. Under the joint operation of the two thoughts, Ye Ling Shao felt as if his body was being controlled by two selves. With the eruption of one skill after another, his direct strength soared. At this moment, Ye Ling Shao mobilized a stronger power from his body than Zhang Yu. Bang! With Ye Ling Shao taking a step backward, Zhang Yu was also dragged forward one step. Seeing Zhang Yu being dragged step by Ye Ling Shao towards the edge of the high platform, a trace of heat suddenly appeared in the air. Along with the changes in the divine power formation, a high-temperature environment descended. The air was rapidly heated, and every breath seemed to be scorching Zhang Yu and Ye Ling Shao's lungs, and a burst of tingling came from their skin. The two stopped breathing almost at the same time, and then Zhang Yu activated the low-temperature form of the ice and fire body refining technique to resist the high-temperature environment. Ye Ling Shao activated his body protecting technique, wrapping a thick layer of keratin around his body to isolate the transmission of heat as much as possible. After such a toss, Ye Ling Shao gritted his teeth and continued to exert force to pull the taut dragon binding rope, dragging Zhang Yu forward 2 more steps, leaving only 5 steps from the edge of the high platform. At this moment, the high-risk environment changed again. The scorching heat just now disappeared, and changes in gravity descended on Zhang Yu and Ye Ling Shao. The two felt as if they were suddenly carrying a mountain on their backs. In particular, the load on the internal organs increased, and the two had to use the power of the internal organs to resist. After slightly adapting, Ye Ling Shao pulled again, dragging Zhang Yu forward 2 more steps, leaving only the last 3 steps from the edge. Then the high-risk environment changed again, this time it was high pressure. The atmosphere seemed to suddenly become countless times heavier, as if they had been thrown into the seabed thousands of meters deep in one breath. The sudden and drastic change in pressure directly caused Zhang Yu and Ye Ling Shao to bleed from their 7 orifices and their eardrums to rupture. The two had to adjust the pressure in the overall internal cavity and try to resist this environment. But Ye Ling Shao still seized the opportunity and dragged Zhang Yu 2 more steps, leaving only the last step from the edge of the high platform. I can't wait any longer. Zhang Yu focused his attention slightly on the chain formation diagram, and spent 2 seconds switching the high school, holy, body, to the martial Tao holy embryo. With this switch, Zhang Yu felt a force of self-healing emerge from the flesh and blood in his body, and the surrounding high pressure seemed to be no longer so terrible, in front of the martial Tao holy embryo. But in these 2 seconds, the high-risk environment changed again. The high pressure disappeared, but bursts of acid mist floated out of thin air and attacked the two. Listening to Audio Nova. Accompanied by waves of terrifying acid mist, the intense corrosion instantly caused Zhang Yu's skin to emit a puff of green smoke, and the severe stinging made him frown involuntarily. Zhang Yu could feel that if the acid mist continued to corrode him, his flesh would be severely damaged, even endangering his life. So he immediately stirred the muscles throughout his body, causing them to vibrate. With every inch of his skin exerting force and vibrating, Zhang Yu's entire body seemed to explode with a gust of wind, blowing away the oncoming acid mist. However, this operation of using force to resist the acid mist inevitably caused Zhang Yu to retract some of his strength. Similarly, Ye Ling Shao on the other side was also unable to take advantage of Zhang Yu's retraction of force to drag the dragon binding rope, simply because he was also shaking his body, creating gusts of wind to resist the acid mist. But Zhang Yu could feel that, thanks to the self-healing ability bestowed by the martial Tao holy embryo, whether it was the previous high temperature, high pressure, gravity, or the damage caused by the acid mist, all were gradually recovering. Moreover, he still had 2 trump cards that he hadn't used. Zhang Yu let out a violent roar, and the Zen character on his chest suddenly dissipated, his physical potential being frantically unleashed under the stimulation of the toxins. Xiong Yu's forehead veins bulged, but he was still roaring in his heart. Not yet. Then came the overload of the martial Tao holy embryo. Roar! The muscles in Xiong Yu's arms expanded again, and his entire body rose from 2.8 meters to 3.3 meters. Whether it was the eruption of toxins from the boundless zen of spring and autumn, or the overload of the martial Tao holy embryo, both were forcing the body's potential, allowing the body to explode with a power that exceeded its own burden. And when these two methods were used together by Xiong Yu, he felt as if the flesh and blood all over his body were burning. An endless stream of power was squeezed out from every bit of flesh and blood, and terrifying power was conducted through the muscles, even pressing the bones to creak. But because of this, Xiong Yu's body was bearing an unprecedented burden at this moment. Muscle strains appeared, the bones began to show slight damage, the internal organs were squeezed and deformed, and some tiny ruptures occurred in the blood vessels. Even with the self-healing ability brought by the martial Tao holy embryo, it could not stop the constant self-damage all over his body. But for Xiong Yu, none of this mattered now. Because before coming here, Xiong Yu knew one thing. Coming here is all about risking your life. If you're not risking your life, what are you here for? The Foundation Establishment Certificate Exam? At this moment, Xiong Yu's mind seemed to flash back to the tests, exams, and competitions of the past year. It was also through these experiences that Xiong Yu deeply understood one thing. In Kongshu, a strictly controlled world, if you want to climb up, if you want to stand out, if you want to master stronger immortal Dao techniques, then you need to follow the promotion path drawn by the 10 great sects and defeat your opponents in one exam after another. And in this process, almost every opponent will do everything possible to self-exploit, family exploit, and mutually exploit, pushing their results to the limit. The immortal capital lord in front of him was no exception. The other party would never let go of any possibility of winning, and would fight with all their might to defeat him. And facing this situation, Xiong Yu could only burn all his strength to obtain that extremely precious Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate. I already promised Ajin, promised my sister, that we would study at the 10 greats together. I want to go to the 10 greats, I want to enter a sect. I want to climb up along Kongshu. Break free from the shackles of the ritual. Gain freedom. At this moment, the various cultivation methods that he had painstakingly practiced over the past year surged into Xiong Yu's mind, and the muscles and power pathways throughout his body emerged in his eyes. Technique, strength, potential, everything that could be brought into play was unleashed by Xiong Yu in one breath. Furious power, unparalleled determination, all passed along the power circulating cultivation methods, along the steel-like tough muscles, and finally through the dragon binding rope, fiercely transmitted towards Ye Ling Xiao. Bang! Turning around and taking a step hard on the high platform, Xiong Yu emitted a burst of sound. At the same time, he had frantically dragged the dragon binding rope towards his side, step by step away from the edge of the high platform. And with Xiong Yu's outburst, Ye Ling Xiao only felt an irresistible strange force coming from the other end of the dragon binding rope, dragging him step by step towards the position outside the edge of the high platform. In an instant, Ye Ling Xiao, who had just dragged Xiong Yu to the edge of the high platform, was now dragged to a position only 2 or 3 steps away from the edge. And the place outside the edge, at this moment, in Ye Ling Xiao's eyes, seemed to have turned into a cliff. Once he fell, it would be like falling from the clouds, not only losing the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate, but also losing a lot of wealth and the best opportunity to climb up. In a trance, Ye Ling Xiao seemed to hear some voices ringing in his heart. Brother, let our brothers fight him together. Brother. Ye Ling Xiao murmured in his heart, so you have always been with my heart, accompanying me. Don't let us sacrifice in vain. Don't let the countless members of the Yue family, generation after generation, sacrifice in vain. Brother, borrow our strength, and lead the Yue family to rush out of this mid-pit, on the first level, and rush to the upper levels of Kongshu. Unknowingly, Ye Ling Xiao had bitten open the second divine soul pill in his mouth. As the temperature of his brain rose rapidly, he felt a burst of dizziness in his head, but miraculously maintained 3 kinds of thinking, like 3 selves, operating his body and running 3 times the number of cultivation methods in his normal state. Blood flow, internal organs, bones, fascia, every inch of flesh and blood throughout his body was mobilized 100%, allowing Ye Ling Xiao's body power to reach an unprecedented peak. It also made the frantically dragged dragon-binding rope suddenly slow down. But it's not enough. With a crisp snap, Zhang Yu's finger bone suddenly cracked under his terrifying power. Correspondingly, Ye Lingxiao was one step closer to the cliff. Still not enough. We are still not his opponent. Then let's continue to fight. University representatives, don't you like to watch the geniuses below risk their lives? Then watch enough today. The next moment, Zhang Yu only felt that the power coming from the other end of the dragon-binding rope had increased once again, and then increased again, with a tendency to drag him over. He still has this kind of trump card? No, this voice is. Zhang Yu suddenly turned his head to look at Ye Lingxiao, only to see green smoke billowing on another high platform, accompanied by a sizzling sound, and a large amount of acid mist was constantly corroding Ye Lingxiao's flesh and blood. This guy gave up using some of his strength to resist the acid mist, and used all his strength to fight me. At the same time, the dangerous environment changed again, and waves of poisonous mist swept towards Zhang Yu and Ye Lingxiao at the same time. Zhang Yu vibrated his muscles, stirring up strong winds to blow away the poisonous mist. But at this moment, Ye Lingxiao still did not waste any strength to blow away the poisonous mist. His eyes were fixed on Zhang Yu, fixed on the dragon-binding rope. At this moment, there seemed to be only one thought left in his mind: he wanted to win. He wanted to do everything in his power to win the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate. Looking at Ye Lingxiao's desperate struggle, Zhang Yu suddenly understood the true purpose of this exam. Those true gods, they had already predicted this, knowing that if we fought to the end, the victor would be decided in a life or death crisis, right? Do those high and mighty fellows in the audience seats enjoy watching us fight to the death so much? Zhang Yu looked at Ye Lingxiao, who was gradually covered in blood, turning blue and purple, and thought to himself, although I still don't know your name. But from the power transmitted through this dragon-binding cord, I have felt your will and experienced your determination. But I will never admit defeat. Besides, if it comes to fighting to the death, I am definitely better at it than you. Zhang Yu also stopped resisting the poisonous mist, concentrating all his spirit, and all his strength, on the dragon-binding cord. Boom. As the two people's strength fiercely clashed on the dragon-binding cord, a strong tremor came from the cord. At the same time, the high-risk environment began to change again. High temperature, high pressure, strong acid, toxins. But at this moment, no matter what kind of threat, or what kind of damage, it could no longer distract Zhang Yu and Ye Lingxiao in the slightest. Whether it was the burning of the body under high temperature, the burning of the internal organs, or the rupture of the air cavity under high pressure, causing physical damage, or the bloody flesh on the body and the severe burns inside and outside the body, or the body's toxic reaction, with the toxins constantly spreading as the operation became more intense. At this moment, all of this was no longer important in their eyes. They wagered their lives, betting all the strength they could muster. At this moment, the only thing in their eyes was each other, only that one thought remained: win. Use their strongest strength, their strongest will, to drag the other over. With a crisp crack, Ye Lingxiao's right leg bone finally, completely, broke in the repeated damage, causing him to kneel on the ground. On the other side, Zhang Yu, relying on his powerful self-healing ability, although he also looked bloody, still maintained a complete structure. This fracture of Ye Lingxiao was like breaking the balance of the scales, making it impossible for Ye Lingxiao to stop the movement of the dragon-binding cord. Am I going to lose? Looking at himself being dragged step by step towards the cliff edge like an abyss, a trace of despair suddenly flashed in Ye Lingxiao's heart. Is it over here? The family's heavy trust, the entrustment of his brothers and sisters before their deaths, endless exams, grades, awards, one first place after another. All of this had made Ye Lingxiao feel more and more like shackles, strands of spider silk, tightly entanglement in his life, making him feel more and more tired and exhausted. But later he gradually understood that even without these, he still wanted to climb the immortal path. The family gave him heavy responsibilities, but also gave him opportunities and help far beyond others. I want the future Ye family descendants to no longer have to make such sacrifices, no longer have to pay the price of tens of thousands of people to reach the starting line that some people are born with. I want the Ye family to move to the second layer, have a second layer household registration, and become a second layer family. Ye Lingxiao understood, in his heart, that the family's heavy trust, and the entrustment of his brothers and sisters, were never his shackles. They were like his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys, accompanying him at all times, silently pushing him from behind, sending him to where he was today. Until this moment, Ye Lingxiao felt as if he had been pushed again by them. At the same time, amidst the roaring sounds, Zhang Yu, who had inhaled a large amount of poisonous mist on the other high platform, had now carried out a second burst of the boundless spring and autumn meditation. The most new small say in 6-9 book bar first hair. The previous burst came from the toxins accumulated after he took a large amount of medicine. And this burst was after inhaling a large amount of poisonous mist in the high-risk environment. He found that the Zen character on his chest had accumulated a lot of toxins again. Although Ye Lingxiao had knelt on the ground, Jiang Yu did not relax in the slightest as long as he had not reached the final moment of victory. Because no matter from his life experience or the combat experience taught to him by Zhenjin, the more important the battle at this critical moment, the more careful he must be about the opponent's counterattack at the last moment. At this moment, the second burst of the boundless spring and autumn meditation caused Zhang Yu's whole body to explode with clusters of blood mist, and every cell in his body seemed to be groaning, wailing, and roaring with near death. But in this more dangerous and more hopeless condition, with the operation of the remnant ox's body sacrificing heart technique, Zhang Yu felt a kind of excitement, and even the pain on his body seemed to be suppressed a lot, and his Dao heart was even more enhanced. Zhang Yu roared, "I am determined to get the Foundation Establishment Certificate." On the other side, Ye Lingxiao crushed the last divine spirit pill in his mouth. His mind recalled the warning from the person in charge of the laboratory: you must never take more than 3 pills in one day. Otherwise, the brain will not be able to bear it, even your perfect bloodline will not work. Counting the divine spirit pill taken during the first level of the divine spiritual root assessment, this was already the 4th divine spirit pill that Ye Lingxiao had taken in one day. Feeling the power of the medicine surging in his body, rushing towards his brain, Ye Lingxiao suddenly found his thinking clear, as if something had awakened from his mind. I can do it. I can handle 4 pills. At this moment, Ye Lingxiao felt that there were 4 cells working together in his body, like a working group, each sharing different body operations and competing with each other, performing performance appraisals. At the same time, under Zhang Yu's violent exertion, the dragon binding cord seemed to have turned into a real giant dragon, twisting violently in Ye Lingxiao's hands. Ye Lingxiao was thinking about how to suppress this giant dragon, how to resist Zhang Yu's violent power, but the next moment his arm had also directly fractured in the confrontation of power. At this moment, although Ye Lingxiao had made some progress in his brain and spirit, his body had already been on the verge of collapse, and there was no room for him to exert himself. At the same time, the side effects of the 4th divine spirit pill began to appear, and Ye Lingxiao only felt a sharp pain in his brain, as if to tear his head apart and insert iron skewers into it. The next moment, Ye Lingxiao could no longer resist Zhang Yu. Under the drag of that violent force, Ye Lingxiao felt that his sublimated spirit at this moment, like a dream full of color, was ultimately no match for the cold reality and gravity, and was dragged into the abyss. Boom. It was seen that the dragon binding cord was directly thrown into the sky with a bang, under the infusion of Zhang Yu's extremely violent power. Ye Lingxiao, who was tightly holding the dragon binding cord, was also thrown into the sky. He slowly swept his gaze downward, and seemed to still be able to see the majestic figure standing in a piece of blood mist on the high platform. Large swaths of white-hot air rolled outward with the opponent's exertion, and coupled with the blood mist constantly exploding on Zhang Yu's body, it made him like a war god burning with blood and fire. Ye Lingxiao sighed in his heart, how can this guy have such a strong body? It was seen that Zhang Yu grabbed the dragon binding cord with both hands, and threw Ye Lingxiao and the rope together. Whoosh! With Zhang Yu's forceful throw, Ye Lingxiao, along with the dragon binding cord, shot towards the audience like a long comet. The numerous spectators watching this scene all revealed a hint of surprise on their faces, never expecting that Zhang Yu would gain such an overwhelming advantage in the end, even flinging Ye Lingxiao away. Seeing Ye Lingxiao about to fly in front of them, in the blink of an eye, the crowd in the audience seats had different expressions and thoughts. At the same time, accompanied by bursts of divine power, rippling back and forth in midair, Ye Lingxiao, who was just a little bit away from crashing into the audience seats, slowly stopped in midair. Zhang Yu looked at Huang Ziku, who appeared in front of him, and asked seriously, "Did I win the foundation establishment certificate? Is it mine?" Huang Ziku waved his hand and cast a series of spells, first using the divine power of the Ministry of Health to stabilize Zhang Yu's injuries, and then slowly announced, "Zhang Yu, the winner of the third round. Zhang Yu, the overall winner of the third round of the foundation establishment examination. I announce that Zhang Yu, the final winner of the sports track of this year's foundation establishment examination, will be granted the foundation establishment qualification certificate by the Heavenly Court, and will possess foundation establishment qualification." After hearing Huang Zishu's words, Zhang Yu felt that all the strength in his body was about to be drawn away, and his whole body suddenly collapsed into the pool of blood. Finally, day and night, tireless struggles, life and death fights, after paying almost everything he could, plus the millions of debts in the bank, and finally gambling with his life, Zhang Yu finally stepped half a foot into the threshold of the top 10. Looking back at the road he had traveled, Zhang Yu only felt it was so difficult, wanting to climb up in Kongshu. It was really so difficult. Thinking of this, he suddenly let out a long roar, as if to vent all the unhappiness and resentment accumulated in his heart. Looking at Zhang Yu's appearance of roaring at the sky, Huang Ziku didn't care. He had seen all kinds of reactions after receiving the foundation establishment qualification certificate. There were heart attacks, cerebral infarctions, and even people who went crazy on the spot. Zhang Yu was considered relatively normal. At the same time, Ye Lingxiao on the other side had fallen into a coma due to the side effects of the drugs and the injuries on his body. The laughing and crying emoji in the audience said, "Mother, it seems that the Ye family you mentioned is not very good. Even the strongest successor has lost." Looking at Ye Lingxiao, who was casually pulled in mid-air by divine power and had already passed out, the smiling emoji in the audience frowned, feeling that Ye Lingxiao at this moment was like a dead dog on the side of the road. No matter how he looked at him, he didn't like it. The smiling emoji said lightly, "If you don't want to use this person, then don't use him. But the Ye family is very useful on the first floor, you can't give up." The laughing and crying emoji said, "Actually, this Ye Lingxiao is already quite powerful, more powerful than most high school students on the second and third floors, right? It's just that he was unlucky and met a more powerful opponent. I will still use him. It's just compared to him." Speaking of this, he looked at Zhang Yu with interest. "I am more interested in this Zhang Yu." The smiling emoji frowned and said, "You want to sign him as a formal employee?" The laughing and crying emoji said, "What's wrong with that? As long as he can satisfy me, whether it's him, that by Jinjin, or even this Ye Lingxiao, I can make them formal employees." The smiling emoji shook his head and sighed, "Dogs can't be fed to full, alas. You will understand sooner or later." The laughing and crying emoji didn't think so in his heart, and had already decided to contact the Oasis Company on the first floor and send representatives to Soyoung City to spend money directly. At the same time, many representatives from other universities in the audience also focused their attention on Jiang Yu. After all, although Ye Lingxiao was very excellent, he now seemed dim in comparison to Zhang Yu, especially considering that Zhang Yu was still one grade younger, which made many university admissions representatives eager to try and determined to recruit Zhang Yu into their university. The cowhead from Wanfa University looked at this scene and said to the husky head beside him, "It seems that the price you plan to offer is not enough." The husky head frowned and said, "It's okay for us top 10 universities to compete for people." He looked in a certain direction in the audience and snorted coldly, "I can understand the thoughts of Colonel 36 and Lieutenant Colonel 70 to daring to have ideas. But how dare those junior colleges also want to recruit such talents? Are they worthy? If Zhang Yu enters a junior college, what's the difference between that and being in jail? Don't even think about taking the postgraduate entrance examination in this life, and don't even think about achieving the golden core." The cowhead reminded him from the side, "If you want to snatch people, then you better act quickly, lest this Zhang Yu is too poor and hasn't seen the world, and if he's too short-sighted, he might be tricked away by some junior college, pretending to be a university. After the foundation establishment qualification certificate is issued here, the candidate's information should no longer be confidential, you better act quickly." The husky head's heart sank upon hearing this. What the other party said was correct. It wasn't like this kind of thing hadn't happened before. He thought to himself, "I really should quickly contact the representative of the company on the first floor and find someone to contact this Zhang Yu." However, before leaving, he seemed to have thought of something and confirmed again, "Are you sure that your finance department won't recruit these students?" The cat head said lightly, "Their qualifications are indeed good, but it's good enough for them to do security and civil engineering. Want to enter the door of finance? When they can gain a foothold above, perhaps their descendants will have a little bit of a chance after several generations of struggle." On the other side of the audience, a teacher from a junior college was already on the phone with his principal. He said decisively, "Principal, as long as we get this student, and fully cultivate him, to become a golden core, who will dare to say that junior colleges can't produce golden cores in the future? Our school's rating will definitely have a chance to go up." Just as the figures in the audience were getting fewer and fewer, and one by one were leaving. The injuries on Zhang Yu and Bai Zhenjin's bodies had also been completely healed. At this moment, they gathered together with all the other contestants and were about to start issuing the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificates. Seeing Bai Zhenjin, Zhang Yu quickly walked up and asked, "Zhen, did you make it?" Bai Zhenjin nodded with a big smile and said, "I made it, Yuzi. What about you?" "I made it too." Zhang Yu hugged Bai Zhenjin with a hearty laugh. "Zhen, we can go to university together." Hearing these words, Bai Zhenjin felt as if a big rock had fallen to the ground in her heart. She was really worried that Zhang Yu hadn't passed the exam. At this moment, she also hugged Zhang Yu tightly, and couldn't help but laugh loudly. "Have you thought about which of the top 10 universities to choose? Shouldn't we make plans for the postgraduate and doctoral entrance examinations?" Yunjing, who was on the side, watched the two of them hug each other and spin around. His already gloomy face suddenly became even more unsightly. On the scene, besides Ye Lingxiao, who was still undergoing treatment due to his severe injuries and unable to attend, Zhang Yu, Bai Zhenjin, Yunjing, and the 4 contestants from the Dao Heart and Mono tracks were all gathered here. Zhang Yu observed the 4 contestants from the 2 tracks and could immediately tell that 2 of them were highly excited, practically writing the words Foundation Establishment Certificate on their foreheads. As for why Zhang Yu knew this, it was naturally because he had the same thought as them, itching to at everyone he knew to show off the fact that he had passed the Foundation Establishment Qualification exam. In contrast, the other 2 looked dejected, like defeated dogs, making the outcome obvious. Therefore, Zhang Yu's gaze lingered on the 2 winners. He remembered that in the first round of the Foundation Establishment exam, this man and woman ranked 3rd and 5th respectively in total score. Their ability to stand out among the many Xiandu students was naturally extraordinary, but initially, Ye Lingxiao and Yunjing's performances were too dazzling, overshadowing everyone else. Later, due to the different tracks, Zhang Yu hadn't paid much attention to the other top students in Xiandu. Now, seeing these 2 obtain the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate, Zhang Yu estimated that even if this man and woman were not as strong as Ye Lingxiao, they should still be at the top level among Kunshu's first-year high school students. Of course, compared to me and Zhen, they are definitely much worse. After a burst of excitement, these 2 students quickly noticed that one person was missing from the scene. The male student walked to Yunjing and asked curiously, "Where's Ye Lingxiao? Did he take the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate and run away?" This male student had a well-proportioned figure, and his water blue hair rippled like waves, obviously some kind of Dharma body. His name was Xiong, and he was the winner of the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate in the Mana track. Yunjing glanced at Xiong with a gloomy expression, and said coldly, "How would I know where he went?" "But you can ask him." Yunjing glanced at Zhang Yu, and said indifferently, "He should be in the same group as Ye Lingxiao, right? It seems like he won against Ye Lingxiao." "Won against Ye Lingxiao? How is that possible?" Xiong revealed a hint of shock upon hearing this and turned his head to look at Zhang Yu's position. As a top student in the 5th level of Xiandu, Xiong deeply knew how terrifying Ye Lingxiao was and how powerful the perfect bloodline was. After all, as classmates from the same high school, Xiong had been suppressed by Ye Lingxiao from the moment he entered school until now, which could be called the shadow of his life. Moreover, from the time of registration, Xiong could tell at a glance that Zhang Yu was an outsider. It was simply outrageous that an outsider actually came to snatch the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate from Xiandu's native. Xiong looked at Zhang Yu and asked, "This you defeated Ye Lingxiao?" Feeling the other party's shocked gaze, Zhang Yu tried to control the corners of his mouth from turning up, and said with a calm expression as much as possible, yes. Bai Zhenzhen glanced at him from the side, thinking, Yuzi, your desire to show off is almost showing on your face. You really can't hold back at all. After seeing Zhang Yu nod slightly, Sheng Ji gasped in his heart, and asked again, then where is he now? Zhang Yu recalled the process of Yue Lingxiao being treated, and said faintly, it seems like the injury was too serious, and he won't be able to recover in a short time, so he can't attend the award ceremony. If Sheng Ji's gaze was already full of admiration, after hearing Zhang Yu admit that he had defeated Ye Lingxiao, then at this moment, his gaze towards Zhang Yu was like looking at a monster. He was shocked in his heart that Ye Lingxiao he not only lost, but was also so seriously injured that even the gods couldn't heal him in a short time. At the same time, the other contestants also looked over upon hearing this. As fellow Xiongdu natives, they were also incredulous upon hearing what Zhang Yu said. After all, which high school student in Xiongdu didn't know the strength of Ye Lingxiao? They couldn't imagine what kind of high school student would have to be to defeat Ye Lingxiao, and even seriously injure Ye Lingxiao, to the point where he couldn't be healed in a short time during the competition. At this moment, Zhang Yu, in their eyes, was no longer an ordinary outsider, but a super outsider, a foreign tycoon with unfathomable wealth. At the same time, another female student who won the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate on the Dao Heart track noticed that Yanjing's expression was gloomy and his condition was not good. She also asked, Yunjing, you also lose? Yunjing glanced at the woman who asked the question. The other party's name was Tan Shishan, and she was also a Xiongdu native like him. Although her wealth and grades were a little worse than his and Yue Lingxiao's, everyone usually belonged to the same circle, except that she was more inclined towards Ye Lingxiao and the Oasis group. But thinking that the guy who used to chase after him had actually obtained the Foundation Establishment Certificate this time, while he didn't, Yunjing felt another wave of helplessness in his heart. He knew that from this moment on, one side had the Foundation Establishment Certificate, and the other side didn't, just like the top 10 and top 30 in the grade. They might never be able to sit at the same table to eat again. Yunjing took a deep breath and didn't bother to hide it. After all, these people would know in a while, so he simply said, yes, I lost. Unlike Ye Lingxiao, who was completely suppressed by Zhang Yu's strength and body in the end, Yanjing, although he lost to Bai Zhenjin, had a strong feeling of dissatisfaction and regret in his heart. Because Yanjing could feel that in terms of hard strength, that woman was definitely not as good as him. If I could have been more careful if I had changed my tactics at that time. Every time he reviewed the 3 battles with Bai Zhenjin, Yanjing became more and more angry and regretful. He was confident that if he could fight again, he would definitely be able to defeat her. Just like making a mistake on the last question of the general knowledge exam due to carelessness, Yunjing only hated that he was not careful enough, not meticulous enough, and did not pay enough attention to his opponent at that time. Hearing what Yanjing said, the Xiongdu people present were once again shocked, not expecting that in addition to Ye Lingxiao, even Yanjing had lost. It should be known that when the groups were divided earlier, they all defaulted that the group where Ye Lingxiao and Yanjing were located must be the group of death, and everyone else besides them would inevitably be eliminated. Therefore, they all tried to avoid the tracks where Ye Lingxiao and Yanjing were located, squeezing onto the Mana and Dao Heart tracks to compete for the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate, and in the end, Xiong and Tan Shishan won the Foundation Establishment Certificate. At this moment, the gazes of the Xiongdu students towards Zhang Yu and Bai Zhenjin became even more different. The old clothes on the other party's body, the strip-like sports pants, and the garbage that could barely be called shoes all seemed so unfathomable at this moment. Zhang Yu looked at Bai Zhenjin's slightly red face and thought, this guy on Zhen, his face is almost red, but he's still pretending to be aloof. He really can't hold back. Bai Zhenjin thought to herself, damn it, I really want to post a moment. However, the Xiongdu students quickly recovered from this shock and began to think about the impact of this sudden accident. Sheng Ji thought to himself, but Ye Lingxiao lost, maybe it's a good thing. Do I have a chance to replace his position to work for the Oasis group? Sheng Ji's family, like the Ye family, planned to cooperate with the Oasis group to launch a revolution, so he also knew some inside information. And Ye Lingxiao, because of his more excellent grades, became the main propaganda object in the plan. But now, Saint Ji saw an opportunity. He, too, wanted to be a dog for the soon-to-descend second-level master of the Oasis group. For Saint Ji, the act of being a dog never carried any burden. As long as the money was right, he'd even go so far as to the dog until they went bankrupt, but unfortunately, there are no truly good deals in this world. Unlike the pampered young masters of immortal Metropolis, Saint Ji was born into a branch family, and lived on the ground level of immortal Metropolis, since he was old enough to understand. Because the sky was completely blocked by the Sky Citadel, he hadn't seen daylight until he entered high school. Outsiders who came to immortal Metropolis always praised how great the immortal Metropolis young masters had it, with so many good cultivation conditions from childhood. Every time Saint Ji heard such words, he would scoff. Who said everyone in immortal Metropolis was rich? In his opinion, immortal Metropolis had more poor people than any other city, because it was the most competitive place on the first level of Kungshu, and the place where the most people were eliminated each year. To him, many people on the first level were merely dogs of the 1.5 level, and weren't the 1.5 level people just dogs of the second level. In his eyes, Kungshu was like a gigantic dog fighting ring. Either you treated others as dogs, or you were someone else's dog. And only by learning how to be a dog, and how to train a dog, could you climb all the way up in Kungshu, just like he had climbed from the first level to the 1.5 level. That's not right. Saint Ji looked at Xiong, thinking, could this guy also be recruited by the Oasis group? Wouldn't that mean I'd have to compete with him? Thinking of this, Saint Ji felt another wave of bitterness in his heart. How could he compete with this monster who could suppress Ye Lingxiao? The newest and fastest novels are at 6-9 Shubiye. But maybe? Saint Ji knew Ye Lingxiao's temperament. In his opinion, he was too aloof. Since this guy's strength is even greater than Ye Lingxiao's, then his family background and net worth must be unbelievably impressive. Saint Ji looked at Xiong, sensing the other's cold, faint aura, and thought to himself, I'm afraid his temper is even worse than Ye Lingxiao's. He's probably even more aloof and arrogant, and might not even want to serve the second-level master of the Oasis group. If that's the case, then I'll have a chance. Anyway, after the Foundation establishment exam ends, the examinee information will no longer be confidential. I'll immediately inquire about his background when I get back, see what his origins are, and see if I have a chance. Just then, accompanied by the rippling divine light, the 5 true god examiners cast their figures down. Deng Bingding, as the chief examiner, first encouraged the many examinees present, gave a bunch of platitudes, and then began to announce the results of the exam. As the 4 recipients of the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificates stood up one by one, Deng Bingding's gaze lingered on Zhang Yuan by Zhen for an extra moment, then looked at the 4 with a slight smile and said, You 4 performed very well, using tenacious will, superb skills, and fearless courage to show the demeanor of Kungshu first-level high school students. Now, Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificates will be awarded to you. After listening to the other party's long speech, Zhang Yu finally opened his eyes wide, as the awards began. Under Huang Zishu's direction, he received a gold stamp certificate with both hands. Looking at the 5 large characters Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificate on it, Zhang Yu breathed a long sigh of relief, in his heart. At the same time, Huang Ziku reminded him, keep the certificate at home, mainly for Guinyam. The electronic version is still the main thing to use usually. Zhang Yu asked, does it come with special effects? Like the kind that hovers over your head. Huang Ziku smiled slightly and said, that requires you to study it yourself. Nearby, Yunjing and the other 2 losers were all looking at the Foundation Establishment Qualification Certificates in the hands of the 4 people, the desire, envy, and jealousy in their eyes seeming to materialize. Next was the interest-free loan of 3 million, which all the students present, regardless of victory or defeat, could receive. Deng Bingding stretched out her hand and drew, and a huge red envelope appeared above everyone's heads, with the number 3 million written on it. Take it, it contains the interest-free loan of 3 million. This was insignificant small money for people like Yunjing and Saint Ji, but for Zhang Yuan by Zhen, it was another large income, greatly alleviating their economic difficulties, and filling their already empty wallets. The 2 happily took the red envelopes, watching their account balances soar, and were already planning how to spend it. As for using it to repay previous loans, that's not the style of us Kungshu people. Next was the reward of an expert-level cultivation technique. Zhang Yu and Bai Zhenjun had spent the past few months selecting various cultivation techniques and had already planned what they needed for their next step, and now they quickly reported the cultivation techniques they required, and would soon receive the usage rights and electronic versions of the techniques. Finally, there was the item of a designated university teacher. Deng Lingding looked at the four and said, "This reward will be given to you after you enter university. When you ascend to the second level and enter the university city, the local true god will contact you and designate a teacher for you. Which teacher to designate specifically will require you to understand it yourself at that time." Speaking of this, she paused and reminded, after entering university, choosing the right teacher is very important. If it is difficult to decide for a while, you can choose not to choose first, and wait until you have enough understanding and certainty before choosing. Also, after this foundation establishment exam ends, the information protection for the examinees will no longer continue. After you go back, you may encounter various universities and companies recruiting you in advance. My suggestion to you is, don't easily agree to any conditions. Listening to Deng Bingding's words, Zhang Yu always felt that the other party was looking at him, and by Zhenjin, when she was speaking, as if these words were specifically addressed to them. But, he thought to himself, the immortal metropolis young masters around him must have known about this kind of thing for a long time. In comparison, he and Bai Zhenjin were indeed the most lacking in understanding of this kind of thing. Thinking again of the other party adding him as a friend and suppressing the Zhu family, Zhang Yu always felt that this true god seemed to have a subtle kindness towards him. Zhang Yu thought to himself, I didn't give her a good impression talisman. With the complete end of the foundation establishment exam, the examinees also left the examination hall one after another. Deng Lingding looked at the empty examination hall in front of her, and understood in her heart that the results of this foundation establishment exam would probably not be as unknown as in previous years. After all, the Oasis Group and several families in Immortal Metropolis had decided to join forces to launch a revolution, and this foundation establishment exam was used by them as a propaganda weapon. Even if Ye Lingxiao fails, it's just a matter of changing the propaganda target at most. Deng Lingding thought to herself that the impact of this exam would soon spread, but in the end, she did not know what kind of results it would cause. The God Department's large-scale intervention in the first level by the Oasis Group, and even the actions of integrating the local wealthy families in the first level. Is there still no reaction? Is it because they are afraid of someone from the Nether Palace behind the Oasis Group? Zhang Yu, Bai Zhenjin, and Zhang Pianpian's figure suddenly flashed through Deng Bingding's mind. Or have the great gods already made their moves in this exam?